This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch or get 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, then please consider becoming a patron and joining us at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast. My name is AJ, and as usual, I'm joined by Richard. Hey, Richard.
Hey, AJ.
And today we have a very special guest, none other than Phil Better of the Phil Better Show. How you going, Phil Better of the Phil Better Show?
I'm feeling better already that I'm here on the show, sir.
I'm so glad to hear that. So you're from Canada, right?
Yes, as you say.
Canada.
How Canadians usually say, I'm from Canada. Yeah, I'm from specifically Quebec, the French province of Canada. Yeah.
Bonjour.
Cool.
Bonjour, monsieur. We're getting international here. Some nice flavor.
Nice. And you have a show, as I said, called The Phil Better Show. What do you talk about on your show?
We talk about, me and Al, we talk about movies, we talk sometimes TV shows. We're branching off into different topics as well, becoming more varied. But at a core, it's a movie podcast that 2 film buffs love. But I've found out recently that I know nothing about movies from being on podcasts that game show podcasts, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, we're also 2 film buffs who love movies.
We should get on some of those, AJ.
Yeah, we should get on some game shows.
Oh God!
So I actually guest starred on an episode of your show last year, where we talked about sequels that don't exist but should.
Yeah, you were pitching me these amazing sequels, and we were just having it's actually one of my most downloaded episodes in New Zealand, surprisingly. Nowhere else. No one else downloaded this movie.
Why.
Wow. I saw just recently that we are in the top 100 most downloaded film and TV podcasts in Barbados.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
We've got a big Barbados. I bet that means we have like 1 Barbados listener.
Yeah.
And the stats just aren't that incredible for that genre in Barbados.
Yeah.
But hey, so I'll put a link to that episode of your show in the show notes. But on our show, this is, of course, Film Franchise Fortnights, where every fortnight we discuss a different film franchise. But this episode is somewhat of a sequel of sorts to our last film franchise episode, where we talked about the Spy Kids quadrilogy, because Spy Kids has a spin-off series, Richard and Phil. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, I've actually seen both of them.
Oh, wow.
Surprisingly, you who is on the podcast have seen both these film franchises.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have not seen both. I've only seen the one that I've been chosen to come on the show for.
Yes. So you've never seen Spy Kids in any capacity?
I've seen clips here and there, obviously. I used to work in a movie theater, so it was coming out around that time. So I'd walk in and see the movie, but slightly out of the age range when these movies came out, I am the oldest man in podcasting, apparently. That's what happens on my show. So
interesting.
Wow, what an honor.
Yeah. I know. I look good for like 110.
I like that you haven't seen Spy Kids. That brings a purity to this discussion about the 2 films in the Machete spin-off series. This is an R-rated. There's 2 films, and they're both R-rated, which is significant because Spy Kids is G-rated. It's
family friendly.
Yeah, it's very family friendly, and these movies are technically a spin-off, though maybe they're not, and I'll get more into that later. And they follow Uncle Machete, who is a secondary character in the Spy Kids movies, played by Danny Trejo, or Trejo. How would you say that? Trejo. Trejo.
It's Danny Trejo, my friend.
Who in the Spy Kids movie is like their rough, tough, grizzled uncle who's a secret agent.
But has a heart of gold.
Has a heart of gold. And that is carried over with more blood, guts, and nudity into the Machete films.
So I have a quick question before we continue. I apologize for interrupting.
No, all good.
Is his name actually Machete in the Spy Kid movies? Or is it just
in
Uncle?
In the Spy Kids movies, they call him Machete, but his real name is Isidore.
Okay.
Yeah, they call him Uncle Machete.
Yeah, Uncle Machete. In the Machete films, his legal name is Machete.
Okay. I wasn't sure because like I'm like watching it, I'm like, I know this is a sequel to Spy Kids, but did they actually call him Machete in Spy Kids?
No, they do call him Machete and Spy Kids. It is as weird. It is as like unavoidably weird as it sounds to have an R-rated spin-off.
Just wanted to make sure that I was in the right mind frame for the rest of the discussion.
No, fair enough. So yeah, he is the uncle of the Spy Kids, and the Machete films are more or less a kind of brand new canon. There's a lot of the same actors playing different characters from its mother series, and despite technically being a spin-off of Spy Kids, the two films are actually an expansion of a fake trailer from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's 2007 Grindhouse double feature. So if you ever saw Planet Terror or Death Proof at the start, they had a bunch of fake trailers for other B-grade films. Machete was one of them, and the B-movie and exploitation style of Grindhouses carried over for the Machete films, and the first film does include some footage from that original joke trailer.
Yeah, and so the other trailers were, I believe, Edgar Wright made one called Don't. There was Eli Roth made a Thanksgiving one. And I can't remember who directed it, but there was Hobo with a Shotgun, which also got made into a feature film. And apparently there's talk of making the Thanksgiving one into one.
There you go.
They should.
So the two... they should. Have you seen Grindhouse, Phil?
I've seen bits and pieces again, working at a movie theater. I walked in on a few of them, and sometimes it sucks because you walk in at the twist, and you're like, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Okay, good.
It's encouraged.
Go for it.
Okay, you're like, fuck, man. Fuck. And you walk out and you're all pissed off.
Yeah, that is why, despite being, I've been into movies since I was a teenager, and everyone was like, why don't you get a job at a movie theater? And that was the reason why I didn't want to do that. So there you go.
You don't want to have to work when like something like Endgame comes out and you haven't seen it yet, but you have to like clean up after people that are talking about spoilers as they walk out.
So one of the things about working at movie theaters, I don't know if it's all of them, but the one that I worked at, whenever there was a large like movie that came out, like Star Wars, I was there during the prequels, Lord of the Rings, those big movies. Usually we had a midnight showing the day of. So let's say it comes out on Thursday, Wednesday at midnight, going into Thursday, so they legally allowed to show it. We would have a midnight screening for it. So people who went to see it didn't have that, oh fuck, I've been ruined, because of this movie. So the whole staff got a chance to see it.
That's cool.
Well, that's good. I remember my friend worked at the movie theater and they illegally watched The Dark Knight Rises before the premiere.
Well, because they have to play it to make sure it works. So, because I had a friend that worked at the movie theater, and he would say that they'd get a text on, so say movies come out on Thursdays, on like Monday or Tuesday night, they'll just send out a text that's like, we're playing down Dark Knight Rises. If you can get here within 2 hours, you can watch it. Because they have to like.
I would
play
be there already.
film.
Like my ass would be outside the door, going, "Okay, let me in now, please."
Yeah, exactly. Machete, the first film was just called Machete, came out in 2010. It was directed by Robert Rodriguez and Ethan Maniquis, which is the only film in the Spy Kids Machete series that is not solely directed by Robert Rodriguez, and the only film that Ethan Maniquis has, the word direct is even mentioned in his resume. He's only co-director on this, and he's never directed any other films. Yeah. He's one of Rodriguez's editors, I think. So I don't know why he was upgraded to
Rodriguez
co-director.
is like quite good like this, because also Sin City is credited to Rodriguez and Frank Miller, who did the comic.
Yeah, true,
and so I think he's quite generous with stuff like, because he said that like essentially Frank Miller storyboarded the film when he made the comic, so that's like partly directing it. And so I think that because Rodriguez is saying about how so much of directing a film and putting a story together is done in post-production, that this guy actually has such a voice in a lot of his films that he deserves a director's credit.
Oh, nice. There you go. So what do we think Machete is rated on Rotten Tomatoes? Any guesses?
I personally want to say it's 100%, but I know it's not. One thing, I love horrible movies, like movies that are like B movies all the way down to Z movies. Like, give me content and I'll love it. And I also am a huge Danny Trejo fan. Ever since I seen him in Desperado, I was like, I love you more. So
nice.
I want his first leading movie, to be at 100%. I know it's not. I'm gonna say 78-ish.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with
Richard,
like a 78 because Rodriguez has a huge fan base, and so is Danny Trejo. So that's what I'm hoping kind of skews it towards that.
Yeah. I was gonna say about around 70.
Yeah, it's got 72. So that's a respectable score.
It is.
For this kind of film as well.
Yeah. And Richard, can you tell me what Machete is about?
Oh, Jesus, I forgot that I needed to do this. So let me pull up the Wikipedia page so I can kind of get a broad strokes.
Wow. It's a deep type of movie.
It is about more than I was prepared for it to be about.
Yeah. Okie dokie. So Machete is it's like his wife has been killed, and so he's like, it's like a revenge mission. And okay, so there's this whole plot I'm now just remembering what the film's about.
It's hard because it's like 4 movies in one, kind of. Or it starts off like 4 movies in a way.
Yeah.
Or it has 4 branches, and it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But there's this whole plot with Senator John McLaughlin, who's Robert De Niro. And so he's the whole parody of a villain politician who wants to build a wall.
One
across
where
the
in
border.
2010 it was like, lol, imagine if this guy was running for president, as
and
if
then
that
all
would
of a
ever happen.
Sudden,
Yeah.
A lot of these movies back then are coming true now. I'm worried.
There is some prophetic stuff in Machete 2010.
So that plot involves an assassination attempt on him, and it's all orchestrated by the bad guy is Lapidus from Lost.
Yep.
Jeff Fahey.
And then what else is going on at this time? You've got Jessica Alba's in there as well.
She's an ICE officer, which again in 2019 is like, you wouldn't boast your lead female character as an ICE officer in a 2019 film.
Yeah, she becomes the love interest for Machete.
One of the love interests.
Yeah. One of many. You've also got Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, you've got Michelle Rodriguez as well.
Yeah,
who's the leader of she's referred to as she, and she's the leader of the Mexican uprising. This film has a lot more to say than I thought it would. As I said before, it's all about immigration and the kind of struggle of the American illegal immigrant, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. It's as I say, it's a lot more deep than I was expecting.
You've also got Steven Seagal's the big bad.
Yeah.
I just love that. It's just
it's it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Cheech Marin shows up again.
Oh, I love Cheech Marin too.
Who's the other uncle in Machete?
Yeah.
And Spy Kids, sorry.
So that was followed in 2013 by Machete Kills, which was only directed by Robert Rodriguez. Any ideas what this will have on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to say it's a little worse.
Yeah, I'm going to guess 40.
Yeah, it's got
32.
Yeah, it's got 30, so a lot lower, a lot less
50%.
respectable. Phil, can you tell us, in broad terms, what is Machete Kills about?
So, they want to stop Mexican drug cartels from getting guns.
Mm-hmm.
You have the great Charlie Sheen playing the president who recruits Machete
He's actually credited in the film as Carlos Estevez.
Yes, his legal name.
Introducing Carlos Estevez.
Yeah, I just.
Well, I think at the start he's credited as Charlie Sheen, but at the end it's Carlos Estevez, and in the trailers it was Carlos Estevez. I remember.
So yeah, it's a bit confusing, this movie too. it's just a lot of plot points. So you have Machete, who's recruited by Charlie Sheen to take out a psychopath who's threatening to nuclear war. So he goes down to the States, try and find this guy. It turns out the guy's heart is connected to the detonator. Yeah. Then all of a sudden you got this Star Trek fan as Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love Mel Gibson's choices for movies now. Because he's like, I don't care anymore. I'm doing anything. And he just, it's like, it's a Nick Cage situation now. And I love that. Yeah. It turns out that it's so weird. Somehow it ends in space. Yeah. So that's like,
the basic plot is that Mel Gibson in a weird, a very interesting character turn, but one that felt unmotivated by the rest of the plot. Mel Gibson suffers from like extreme deja vu, so he can see the future, or he's seen the future, and he wants to he's seen the world get destroyed, so he wants to destroy it himself and then fly everyone up, or the elite up into space. And so Machete's got to stop that. So yeah, if the first one is like this very close to the heart story about immigration, the second one is like Machete goes on a mission, and it's nowhere near as deep or intrinsically linked to Machete as a character.
And there's no social conversations
commentary.
In this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Commentary. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Look, you're smarter than me already. Jesus.
So I've got here on my notes to ask you guys what was your favorite. I think we can both agree it was the first one. Yes.
Yeah. Clearly the first one's better, but it's not, in a way, it's not like the second one's worse. Like, it's one of those weird ones where, like, it feels weird to be like, oh, the second one's way worse. You can say the first one's way better, but I don't think it's...
They're at a level where they're not great, but they're not the worst piece of trash that's been out there. Uwe Boll is still making movies, so we're safe.
It's also one of those, like, in on the joke kind of things, where, it depends on, like, whether or not Like they know what they're making very clearly, and I mean, it's one of those ultimate like, oh, it looks like
everyone's
having
fun.
Yeah.
It's like Snakes on the Plane. Like, no one thought it would actually come to fruition. Now that it is, they're like, we're gonna have fun with this and see how crazy we can go.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like the both of them are jam packed full of like A-list actors that you wouldn't like. Robert De Niro was probably the most shocking one. I didn't know he was in it. And then he's like a main character in the first film. And then Lady Gaga is in the second one. You got Cuba Gooding Jr. and Walton Goggins make cameos, and it's so jam-packed.
Antonio Banderas.
You got Sofia Vergara as well. Charlie Sheen,
it's jam-packed. And what's crazy is like, I feel almost like Machete's cultural impact has not lasted that long, but the way that all these A-listers were happy to be in it kind of makes it feel like it was the biggest thing at the time. But I don't remember them being that big when they came out. But
yeah, it's like they're big now, but when that came out, the only big name in it was Robert De Niro, pretty much.
Right, I feel like Jessica Alba was pretty famous. But
yeah, Alba, like Jessica, well, De Niro and then Jessica, but then you had like all these former big names like Steven Seagal, Michelle Rodriguez, Don Johnson, Lindsay, all these like has-been that are trying. They're hoping that Rodriguez can pull a Tarantino on their career and bring them back to the thing. Some people actually said Lindsay Lohan's Pardon This was supposed to spark her revitalization. And
then she went to Scary Movie 5.
So. It's because this was around the time that The Canyons came out as well, which was I believe Paul Schrader directed more or less porn, which starred James Dean, the porn star, as well, and featured mostly nude scenes from her, and this was supposed to be like her big comeback, but it's like, you can't have a film which stars like porn star James Dean and take it seriously. But yeah, it is like I imagine it's one of those things where a lot of these people are signing on because it's like, do you want to just come in for a few days and just do the most like campy, ridiculous, and like this is the dialogue you'll be delivering? And I think that Robert Rodriguez has a reputation for being really fun to work with, and like the kind of goodwill of the Spy Kids films, and like, hey, do you want to do that? Like, do you want to be a spy kid, but we're going to have heaps of squibs, blood flying everywhere.
Or he has a lot of dirt on a lot of actors, and he's like, look, I'll release this if you're not in this movie. And they're like, fine. He's like, you don't have to take it serious. Like, it's not a serious movie, but I will release this bit of dirt on you. And it's like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was pretty tight with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, very like casual blackmail,
Yeah.
So what impresses me most about the series is less like the quality of the films themselves, and more that what they say about like the unstoppable force that is Robert Rodriguez. Because like the fact that he expanded a tongue-in-cheek fake trailer to a full-length feature film, and then actually made it, and then actually made a sequel to this based on another fake promotion at the end of the made from a fake trailer movie is like a creative freedom that I think I've seen a lot of filmmakers talk about, but very few actually follow through on.
For sure.
How many unmade films has Tarantino got in his back catalogue?
Or Del Toro.
Pulp Fiction spin-off, or Del Toro. Like there is something so
refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's refreshing.
It's just like I don't know another filmmaker like Robert Rodriguez who actually just genuinely does whatever he wants and does these strange and these ideas that don't feel like they can be expanded, and then he makes 2 films out of.
It's similar kind of thing, but I think they're all cut from the same cloth. But like Clint Eastwood's another one that just keeps making movies, and a lot of them are like his what was it, the 1517 to Paris, where it's like, oh, we're going to get the real guys. And but I think these guys, and I think Ron Howard's kind of another one as well, that they're all known for being like, that come in under time and under budget. And so, and like Robert Rodriguez is like, can squeeze the hell out of a penny. Like we're talking about how in Island of Lost Dreams, how he didn't ask for more money. He just wanted more creative freedom. And that's the thing, that he can do all this on a shoestring budget because he, doesn't need to pay like a cinematographer because he can do it. He doesn't need to pay an editor because he can do it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's a good point. So, we have covered a few spin-offs on this show before, and a few different types of spin-offs, and spin-offs kind of have their own cinematic language that we've come to learn, and I think the Machete films gave me flashbacks to another Antonio Banderas-imbued spin-off, which is Puss in Boots, the spin-off to the Shrek films. Because both Machete and the Puss in Boots films feel like their respective titular character has been plucked out of their universe and placed in an entirely new one with several tonal inconsistencies and flat-out continuity errors. Both Trejo and Rodriguez, they have both made 2 different statements regarding the Machete films' canonicity to the Spy Kids movies. Trejo has said that it's what Uncle Machete does when he's not taking care of the kids, while Rodriguez has stated on a Reddit AMA that the Spy Kids and Machete films are alternate universes.
Interesting.
Which makes, I think Rodriguez's explanation makes a lot more sense when you look at the fact that not only do we see the same actors from Spy Kids return as new characters, but we're also told that, like, Machete's brother in the Machete films is a priest played by Cheech Marin, and while in Spy Kids canon, Cheech plays, in Spy Kids canon, Antonio Banderas is Machete's brother. And Cheech plays Uncle Felix, but he goes out of his way several times in those films to make it clear to Carmen and Junie that he's not their real uncle. So it's flat out ignoring family ties, unless he just doesn't mention whatever Antonio Banderas' character's name was in Spy Kids.
It's funny that you're like that the explanation of it's the alternate universes, and this is why makes more sense than just like it's what he's doing when he's not there.
Yeah.
No, alternate universes, it makes more sense than
It could be. You know what? It could be. These could be prequels. These could be prequels to the Spy Kid movies. Have you thought of that, people?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think they're set in modern day though. It's hard to tell.
Well, he
Yeah,
does. He doesn't text. But
Well, he doesn't. Yeah.
yeah. Well, he
And
does
don't tweet.
eventually. But yeah.
Machete
He
don't
tweet.
text. Fun piece of trivia about that line is that Danny Trejo would call up Robert Rodriguez to try and get this movie made all the time, and Robert Rodriguez one day was like, "Why don't you just text me?" And he said, "Machete don't text," which became what they wanted to be a famous line from the film. But I don't know.
Well, this Machete was actually born from Desperado.
Yeah. That was how, like, in Desperado, I haven't seen it, but Robert Rodriguez was so impressed by Danny Trejo in Desperado that he wanted to make a character based on him. And he said when I met Danny, I said this guy is should be like the Mexican Jean-Claude Van Damme or Charles Bronson, putting out a movie every year, and his name should be Machete.
Yeah,
So-
and that's what he has now. Like Danny Trejo's in so many movies.
Exactly.
Oh, he's the best working actor I have ever seen. I love him. Like he pops up when I hear like he was in like Breaking Bad. I was like, yeah,
Yeah, he's in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he was in
He
Breaking
is.
Bad. In Breaking Bad, I was like, yes, badassery. Then he was in Sons of Anarchy. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, whenever he pops up, it immediately just, for me, gets this golden star around the
Nice.
show. Because it just becomes amazing. Like, I know he's not the greatest actor in the world. Like, I know he's not. I'm not pretending he is. I don't have a blinders on. I just love his presence.
Yeah.
His presence, when he comes on screen, you just know one of two things. Either your ass is going to be very, very kicked hard, or you're just going to have a fun time.
Yeah, and I like he said. But I've read somewhere before that he likes to play bad guys who get killed because he wants to like communicate the message that crime doesn't pay to like people.
He's a real seems like a real good dude because there's like his famous thing talking about how he doesn't do his own stunts as well because they're like, oh, you know, that's the cool thing to want to do your own stunts, but he's like, no, I don't need to. Because if I'm the lead in a film and I do a stunt and I get hurt, that shuts down production for a month and all these people don't have work. Like, you know, you're affecting hundreds of people's jobs just to show off that I have
He's
cojones.
also 75 years old.
But
he's 70. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
He's 75 years old. I just pulled up his Wikipedia. And I'm like, because as you were talking, Richard, I'm like, how old is he? Because I'm like, if he's like 50, like Tom Cruise is out there jumping onto planes, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, and then I look, I'm like, holy fuck, he's 75.
Yeah.
Like, no shit, he doesn't want to do his own stunts. He fucking gonna break a hip. He's like, I have to jump on this horse. No. Bring in Julio.
Yeah.
Bring in Julio. He'll do it. I'm not risking my hips. Fuck that. No.
And do you see he recently like pulled a baby out of a crash?
Of course he did.
There's like a car
did.
crash and a 5-year-old that was like this car flipped over and he like pulled a child out of a burning car like last month.
Wow. That's so beautiful.
Of course he did. He's also apparently second cousins to Rodriguez.
Really?
That makes a lot of sense. Wait, no, but did we meet him on the set of Desperado? I don't know. But anyway, Rodriguez's comments about Machete and the fact that he's like, I have to make a character for Danny, and he thought about that when he was making Desperado, which was like 10 years before Spy Kids. This leads me to think that the decision to continue the character past the Spy Kids films was less motivated by doing a spin-off, and it's more like Rodriguez had created this character that he really wanted to explore and just happened to put him in Spy Kids before he put him in anything else.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah, like Machete was always the film. Machete was the thing he always wanted to make, and then he's like, oh man, it'd be funny if I put him in this first. Yeah,
it's almost like an inside joke.
Yeah.
Maybe Machete and Machete Kills aren't spin-offs to Spy Kids. It's more that Spy Kids was a vessel for Rodriguez and Trejo to explore the character.
Machete.
So, we talked a bit before about how the first Machete is like a real relevant piece of. This is such good headlines for your podcast and your think pieces. You know, like we need to rewatch Machete in 2019 because it's all about,
the social commentary that it's talking about is very relevant today, and it's profound.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And it's cool that and it kind of led me down the thought track that like, because Arrested Development did this too. Arrested Development season 4 came out before the Trump administration was in full swing, and that is about building a wall across the border, which leads me to think, and I don't maybe as someone who's a bit older, Phil, maybe you could shed some historical light on this. Was the idea of building a wall along the border, was that already an idea and Trump just became like a mouthpiece for that?
So from what I can remember, I think it was Bush Jr.
Oh, okay.
Came up with an idea for a wall or some sort of like physical structure, like a physical structure across. I don't think Clinton did it, and I don't think his before Clinton was senior.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Shit, look at me. Canadian knowing more about American politics than his own. Well, we do have an election in like 2 months, I think.
Nice.
Anyways, so I think random facts with Phil Better.
Yeah, it's good.
So yeah, I think with Junior, he started the idea of a wall.
Right.
And I think, so this is going to get me into like conspiracy thinking here. So bear with me. I think just like how the Democrats before Clinton put a female up against senior, I think, the Democrats knew that, oh, if they see that we've put a female up, they'll vote for us the next election. I think it was like a ploy.
Right.
So I think with Junior planting the idea of a wall, a lot of the base that is the Republican base that is for the wall, they started like, oh, that's not a bad idea. And then when Trump came along and said, wall, everybody was like, yes, yes, because they had it germinated for like 16, 20 years. I don't know the election cycle in the States, however it is, but they had it germinated and they've talked about it, and they're like, oh, you know what, a wall. So peppering a wall here and there in the Republican speak. So I think it was Junior that started the wall talk, but Trump is the mouthpiece pretty much.
Yeah, well, because that would make sense. The amount of times it shows up pre-Trump era is it feels like that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I just pulled up the Wikipedia, but it seems like Bush Senior like approved some fencing along the border, and then so like not like a full wall spanning the entire thing, and then like with Clinton, it kind of, and like through his 2 terms, it kind of like kept going until in 2005 there was like the talk of actually let's a wall across the entire thing, or like significant chunks of it actually be covered by a physical wall, was 2005, 2006.
Right. How's that for a political allegory? As you start with a fence, you'll end at a wall. You know, start talking about a fence. So there's a quote I really like from Machete, and it's not a particularly obscure quote, but I wanted to read it out loud here, which is...
Machete don't text.
Yeah, it's Machete don't text. No, it's from Jessica Alba's character, who, when she's trying to incite an uprising to save Machete, she says, I am a woman of the law, and there are lots of laws, but if they don't offer us justice, then they aren't laws. They're just lines drawn in the sand by men who would stand on your back for power and glory. We didn't cross the border crossed us. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. Why is this in my Spy Kids spin-off? Like, this is so awesome.
I'm sorry, I'm ready to storm the border. How about you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going down to the States. Screw this. See you guys later.
You storm the Canadian-American border. It's like
and they're just looking at me like, son, you okay? I'm storming the border for my compatriots down south.
The border crossed you,
son,
Phil.
Please leave the vicinity and stop taking weed. I know it's legal, but stop it. It's crazy.
So a term that, Richard, you introduced me to recently on the podcast is the term fridged. I didn't know about this till we talked about it at some point. I think it was on a Patreon episode. Do you know what fridged means, Phil?
Going by the literal sense, it's the place I put my food.
Yeah, that's when you put your food in the fridge. No, it's when a woman character in a story is killed off to as motivation for the hero, the male hero, right?
Yeah, so they've stuck the woman in the fridge as the I'm not 100%
Right.
sure where the term comes from, but it's putting the woman aside because like killed or injured or ridden out of the story in some way, just so that the man has a reason to a motivation.
Yeah. And the Machete films, 3 women are fridged across 2 films. That's pretty impressive. So at the start of the film, his wife is killed. Then at the start of the second film, Jessica Alba's character is killed, who becomes his new love interest at the end of the first film. And then Vanessa Hudgens shows up, not even late that much later in the film, like end of the first act, and is then also killed. And I was like, geez, man, they're really pushing
I
this
was
hard.
surprised by her death.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, Alba, I'm like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. You know, maybe she didn't want to be like this sex symbol or anything like that. Maybe she was like, it's a good death. And then like Vanessa shows up. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She'll be, and I'm like, okay, he doesn't have a love interest going into the third movie.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cool.
I just thought that was maybe an interesting segue into another kind of conversation about questionable sex symbols and questionable ethics when it comes to writing about women in these films. How do you guys feel about the fact that Alexa Pena Vega, who played Carmen in the Spy Kids films, she grew up acting under Rodriguez's direction in the Spy Kids films from the age of maybe 9 or 10. And then in Machete Kills, she is cast as in a very sexualized role. She's one of the...
Yeah, like a femme fatale kind
Yeah,
of
she's
thing.
one of the sex workers at Sofia Vergara's brothel. Is this weird, or is it a me problem? Like, am I not being progressive enough, and do I need to be like...
No, it's fucking weird.
I asked some of my friends last night, I was like, should I bring this up on the podcast, or is it more like, oh no, she's an adult and she's embracing her sexuality, it's fine, or is it weird that
let me flip this. I'm flipping the script.
Yeah.
You're directing, or you're a teacher.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a student, you've had the student throughout so many years, you know. Later, you meet her at a bar. She's now 18, 19. I can't remember how old Alexa was. And she starts hitting on you. How creepy do you feel? Wait, no, you start hitting on her.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I'm imagining it. Yep.
It's not that hard. If it's Alexa Vega,
yeah,
hello.
because the feminist in me wants to be like, no, she can be a sexual being when she's an adult. It's fine. But then also I'm like, this is Hollywood. This is the Hollywood system. It's in a movie that's already pretty like, you know, early 2010 sexist, and it's like, yeah, it's
the height of the Me Too, the height of that stylized
exactly.
movie, you know, that started at the end of the 80s. No, I probably wouldn't have noticed it then, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people were like, "Oh no, it's fine." You know, she's like feminist style. She's coming into her body. She's owning it. Sexuality. I look at it's like the stepdad situation, like
a Woody
bringing
Allen
porn
thing.
here. I don't like step family porn because it's freaking weird. Okay, like
thank
no,
you
I don't want
for sharing. That's very honest of you. What do you think, Richard?
Well, it's interesting because as well, the film that Rodriguez made directly before Machete Kills was Spy Kids All the Time in the World, which Alexa Vega reprises her role. So it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, on one hand, it's like, yeah, I can see it's how, you know, you'd find it weird, and it is, and maybe, you know, it is a little bit strange. But at the same time, it's like, we don't know these people. These are professional directors, professional actors. And so it's like, you know, I'm sure it wasn't as weird for them as we're making it out to be. It's not like, you know, it's not like Rodriguez is Machete and, you know, is seeing these.
No, he's just the director, cameraman,
He's everything
writer.
else.
You know, he's everything, and he's like, "Don't worry." Comes in close to the boob glove. Don't worry, it's part of the script. It's part of the script. You know what? Maybe we need a smaller towel.
Yeah,
we got a smaller towel over here. This is too much towel.
The best way. Okay, if I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, I wouldn't have a problem if he like wrote the character and then was like, who should I cast as this character? And Alexa was like, hey, Robert, I'll do it if you want. Like, then it's all good. It doesn't feel like that's...
Yeah, like, I could imagine that, like, he'd written Machete Kills and then on the Spy Kids All the Time in the World. Because Daryl Sabara's in the first one. and that he was like, "Oh, do you want a part of the next one?" Because of the genre of film we're sending up, there aren't great parts for women. And
really,
she would have been.
I thought all the women here had amazing parts and so much special dialogue.
Yeah.
According to IMDb, at the end of the armored car chase scene, when Desdemona, who is Sofia Vergara, when her crew turn around to leave, and Alexa Pena Vega there, a few notes from apparently, I don't know if this is true because it's from IMDb and I didn't rewatch to make sure it was true. A few notes from the Spy Kids theme music can be heard when Alexa turns around and reveals her exposed backside. Now, if that's true,
you know what? It would not surprise me. I didn't hear it because obviously I never saw Spy Kids, so I wouldn't have caught that musical tune, and I have no musical ear whatsoever. But it wouldn't surprise me that Rodriguez would pull something like that. Just kind of like a cheeky. If this was totally innocent and there was no, step sibling or step parent,
he's just respecting her as an actress, and it's like she's an adult. Yeah.
She's an adult and it's like totally anything happens consensual and shit like that. No power indifference. And he was like, you know what? Just to make it like it's still connected to the universe and just like a wink and a nod to the fact that she's all grown up. Let's play like the Spy Kids, like the doo-doo-doo, and then like move on, like something just subtle. So I can see it happening, but with like everything with that comes with it, it's a little creepy. Yeah. If it is true, it's a little creepy.
Do you want to? I've just found an interview with Alexa Vega talking about being cast in Machete. It's called Alexa Vega talks Machete Kills. How she convinced Robert Rodriguez to cast her.
Oh, well, there you go.
So,
oh shit.
Yeah, she talks about how it's like she's such a tomboy normally, and so it's fun to play someone like fierce and sexual kind of thing as Killjoy.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of flips it, right? That she.
So it's more Rodriguez is like, I don't want to be that creepy dude. And she's like, no, be that creepy dude for me. Put me in this movie.
Robert Rodriguez was like, if I cast you in this movie, there are going to be podcasters in 5 years talking about how I'm a creepy Woody Allen type, and I don't want that.
Okay, here's the excerpt where she says, talks about it. She says she called up Robert and was like, I know you're about to do Sin City 2 and Machete Kills, and I want you to like give me a cool role in Sin City. I want to do more grown-up kind of roles. And he was like, no, I could never cast you in something like that. She was like, why? I'm not a kid. And he's like, yeah, you are. And she's like, I'm 24. And then he was like, what? And then she said, people aren't taking me seriously. I'm capable of doing other roles. So basically, everyone else just sees me as Carmen from Spy Kids, so you're the only person that can break that by giving me another role. Oh
man, I'm so glad we dug into this because this is such a more interesting story now.
Yeah, and then he was like, I've got one role. It's supposed to be an extra, but you can come in and do it, and it will only take a couple of hours. And so, I did it.
Oh, there you go. That makes me feel better about it.
Yeah. And then she talks about how she liked the outfit because it made her butt look good.
Oh, great. Well, it did.
I'm okay with that. It's a beautiful ass.
Exactly. So before we sort of move on, is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about with the Machete series that we haven't talked about
just
yet?
A bit of trivia that I read that because we talked about in the Fast and Furious episode about egos on hyper masculine sets and how they count the punches and make sure that everyone gives as good as they take, kind of thing. But the first film is Steven Seagal and his first theatrically released film in 10 years.
Yeah.
Because there's just a bunch of shitty direct-to-video ones. But this is the only time in his career where he's lost a fight, apparently. But it's written so that he chooses to lose the fight. And I'm sure that's in his contract because by all accounts, he's an asshole. And his Wikipedia page has a section of sexual assault allegations and complaints. Because there's
nearly as bad as Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another thing too, the nudity in the first one with Jessica Alba and Lindsay Lohan. Apparently, Lohan is body doubled.
Yeah, no, because that shot of her when you see her naked in the pool is from that original trailer before Lindsay Lohan was cast. So if you because Machete has like a 3-way with a mother and a daughter in a swimming pool, and the blonde one is supposed to be Lindsay Lohan, but you never actually see her face in that shot because that's just pulled right from the fake trailer.
And then Jessica Alba, what were you gonna say?
Jessica Alba during the shower scene, she wore like
Spanx
undies, like white undies or Spanx and stuff like that. And they just edited out in post, and she's like, I look better with stuff on than off.
Yeah, Jessica Alba has a no nudity clause in her contract, which is something I feel like I've heard before, but not about any other actor or actress. I just know that
Sarah Jessica Parker had one the whole time she was doing Sex and the City. She was the only one that didn't.
There's a few that have it, and then later on they're like, fuck it, I don't care anymore, and they just because there's a certain point.
I think Julia Roberts has mentioned having one as well.
Yeah, I remember I had a conversation with my friends the other day where I was talking about how when I was a kid, I used to think that nudity and like when actors or actresses did nudity in films, it was out of a sense of desperation or a sense of, they didn't have the clout to be like, no, I'll never do nudity. But as I've grown up, it feels more like actors and actresses talk about nudity in more of like, if the story needs it, I'll do it, which is, honorable.
Yeah, I guess there's two types of nudity. There's like Helen Hunt in The Sessions, where it's like it serves the character to be naked all the time, and you're also probably going to be Oscar nominated, kind of thing. Versus, topless girl number 3 in something like Machete or like the Piranha movies, where it's like I want to make it in Hollywood. And they need an extra to get their boobs out, and maybe the right casting director is going to see my boobs and give me an Oscar role. So
or my penis,
or my penis. There's two very different sides of that coin, but it's funny that it starts off with like pretty in your face nudity, and then there's not that much throughout the rest of the film. There's like, that fully naked woman, and I think that was like a conscious decision to be so that you in your mind are like, oh shit, this film's really going for the nudity, but then there isn't a whole lot afterwards other than what you say it was already in the fake trailer.
So jumping on what you said, AJ, about like when you were younger having the idea that if an actor or an actress got nude, it was because it's desperation. I believe that probably in the older movies, like the 80s and maybe up to the mid 90s, that was probably the case.
Yeah.
And then it slowly started switching when actors and actresses were like, no, because I remember there was a point where nudity kind of just dropped off in just everyday main films. Like action movies when I was growing up, I remember there was always there was always a topless chick.
Yeah, and the idea of an R-rated blockbuster now is like, almost unheard of. Because
and even then they don't really have. Yeah, they're not R-rated because of boobies.
Yeah, it's the guts and gore and the swearing. Yeah, really, because
the dangerous swearing.
Yeah, but then moving into like the mid 90s, close to the millennium. Fucking word. That 2000. And then plus it was like, you know what? No, we don't have nudity, and actors and actresses are like, no, they're standing up. And then it got relegated to like,
art house,
to horror movies and arts. Then it became like a switch. There was like artistic nudity in the movie. Like it didn't really serve the point of the film, but the way they shot it was artistic. It was like kind of like Kubrick's
Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, because it's kind of more artistic than like just gratuity boobs. Here, hey, look, boobs. Hey.
Yeah, it's about sexuality rather than sex.
Yeah, like there was that switch, and then like people are like, I have no problem doing nudity as long as it's XYZ. It serves a purpose, and it's not just like, hey, look, titties. Enjoy the titties. Yeah. So I think
which is cool. I like that. It's. I'm trying not to sound like just a horny devil.
I'll save you the problem. I like boobs in my movie. Boobs are good.
I like boobs, eh?
I like boobs, eh?
Give me a couple jugs, and I'll just like bounce them in my face, huh?
How many cancelled actors are in these films? I just sort of start because you've got Mel Gibson, Steven Seagal, Charlie Sheen.
Wait.
And then you've got
wait. Is Charlie really cancelled, or is he just
Charlie's
crazy?
got some shit. Charlie's got some shit if you look him up. But then also, what's her name?
Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, Lindsay Lohan. Yeah, and Amber Heard. Is that who it is?
Yep.
Yeah, Amber Heard's cancelled now. And like this movie,
what did she do?
She lied about Johnny Depp beating her up. Well, that's the allegation.
There's allegations on both sides here. Like, if we're going to believe the girls, we have to believe the guys. So it could be, hey, they may both have beaten each other up.
But like, because a lot of these, like Lindsay Lohan, Mel Gibson, Charlie Sheen, these were all cast after their kind of
meltdown.
Yeah, their big kind of meltdown, and so I think that there's a deliberate choice to cast those kind of actors because the films that they are sending up, the mexploitation films, and like blaxploitation, all those kind of films from the 60s, 70s, they would, the only A-listers or like mainstream celebrities they can get are ones that for whatever reason aren't in the public eye anymore. And that's why we talked about spaghetti westerns a while ago, that it's you can only, the American stars you get are either up and coming or over the hill.
Yeah. And I guess as well, it's a proximity, or not a proximity thing, like if you make a movie that the whole point is to cast 30 different A-listers in it, the bigger the pool is, the more likely it is you're going to get some controversy. With every new A-lister you cast, you're running the risk of them
rolling the dice
shit
that they're
coming
secretly
out.
a piece of shit.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be fun very quickly to tweet Danny Trejo.
Oh. So I'm going to retweet that. Hold on.
Yeah, you're going to retweet it?
Fuck yeah.
So I've written, hey, at official Danny T, we're a podcast from New Zealand and we recently covered Spy Kids and Machete on our show. We'd love a chance to interview you over Skype for a future episode. Would this be possible? I don't know how, his Twitter is active, but I don't think he runs it.
Yeah, he's got one of those kind of Twitters.
Yeah, so I'll tweet it and see what happens. So there you go. The tweet is twat. And we're going to move through now while Phil retweets that tweet for us. We're going to move through to our final segment, which is Continue the Franchise, where we all pitch our own ideas for sequels. But before we do, there is, of course, the ever-looming, lingering sequel thread of the third film, which is called Machete Kills Again in Space, which is teased at the end of the first film, and then the second film, for some reason, opens with a trailer for it. Did you guys? Is that the same on your versions? Yep. It opens with a trailer for the third film, which spoils certain elements from the preceding film. Like, I worked out what was going to happen in Machete Kills because I saw the trailer.
I think you used preceding incorrectly.
Preceding?
The succeeding film, like, because preceding means the film that came before it. Because I was like, why wouldn't it spoil it? The opposite of proceeding is succeeding.
Right. According to IMDb, the story will expectedly follow Machete chasing Mel Gibson's Voz, who flees to outer space after attempting to start a nuclear war on Earth. To just briefly touch on titles, as we often talk about on the show, an actual in-space title being titled In Space would be quite monumental for this podcast, because I've been making the In Space sequel joke since episode 2, and we've never actually covered one that's actually called Da-Da-Da In Space. So last year, Trejo had the following update on Machete Kills in Space. He said, this is verbatim, Machete Kills in Space. Yeah, Robert's doing, working on it. It's going to be, when that comes out, it's going to just be unbelievably crazy. I would say that Robert has his own timetable for doing stuff. I know he's working on a big movie right now. And if this were any other director, I'd say Machete Kills in Space probably isn't happening this long after his last film, but this is the guy who made Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Spy Kids 4, and Sin City 2, all three of which came out around 10-ish years after the previous entry. But in a shocking case of serendipity, as recently as within the last 24 hours at the time of this recording, Trejo did an interview with sci-fi.com where he said he's so sick of waiting for Rodriguez that he might just direct Machete Kills in Space himself, and also indicated that he's begun writing the script himself too.
Yes, I want this so bad.
I feel like that could turn out terrible.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know if Trejo's a writer-director.
So here's what he does. Okay.
Mhm.
He writes a one sheet of the story, what he wants, like not big points that happen, just like a basic story.
Yeah.
Pretty much go into space, laser machete in a spaceship. I end up meeting up all these crazy fucking aliens.
Yeah.
And then he gets his ass kicked, of course, because he's not scared to lose a fight like some big egoed people from another giant franchise that you guys did. And he comes back, he ends up winning, you know, but his ship now shoots laser machetes. And
Nice.
that's how Jesus, I just gave away my sequel. God damn it.
That's a good segue. It's a good segue. It's fine.
So the guns shoot laser machetes, and he ends up cutting up Mel Gibson's thing, and then he turns around. It ends with him turning around, looking at the camera, and goes, "Machete don't text."
Very cool. So that's your sequel
That's
idea?
mine. It went from me telling you exactly what he's going to do to my sequel.
That's
so
good.
yeah, he writes his one sheet. He gives it to an official writer. I'm not me. I do the one sheet.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
And you'll do it. They write the script. It's probably 26 to 30 pages long because it's not going to be very heavy in dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then he can direct it because, well, look, he's been on like thousands, so he's he's not going to pull Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Hold on. Pulling up his IMDb here.
You're going to see if he's directed anything before.
Yeah, I want to see if he's directed something because it'd be great.
If we interview him, AJ, we should ask if he wants us to write and direct it.
Okay, no, that's a good idea. I'm sure we as two white New Zealanders have like the cultural like heritage imbued within us enough to be
I'm
able
putting
to
this
write
now
that
down
film.
that if you guys do interview him, one, fucking amazing. Two, if you guys do get him to agree for you guys to write and direct, or just write or just direct, I want a part in the movie.
Yeah, you'll be the head villain, Phil. You'll be the man in the silver mask who they say is Leonardo DiCaprio, but is subject to change.
And then presumably is Mel Gibson.
Yeah, he's never directed
yeah.
anything.
there you go.
398 actor credits, though.
You
That's
must
insane.
learn something.
Yeah, like, come on, you've directed, like, and plus he's good friends with both Tarantino and Rodriguez, so, like, if he has any questions, he can call up either one of them, because they're the king of grindhouse films, pretty much, and they can give him a little working. But look, when an actor turns director, nearly all his actor buddies will help him out.
Yeah, that's true.
And from all the stuff I've read about Trejo, about how amazing he is on set, like he goes, like, everybody, he talks to everyone on set, like, you're the best boy, the grip, whatever, he's talking to you, he treats you like you're a huge star. So, like, I have no doubt that if he chooses to direct, even if he can't direct his way out of a paper bag, I guarantee you
this heartwarming, earnest attempt from a 75-year-old man to direct a huge special effects heavy space opera. That's why I want to interview him, because I feel like he'd make us feel like rock stars.
No doubt that if you guys get an interview with him, even if it's like 20 minutes, you're gonna walk away there like you're superstars. And if anybody out of all the podcasts I listen to, apart from one other, well, it's not New Zealander, it's a Australian podcast, I think you guys probably have the best chance.
Thank you very much. Hopefully he feels the same way. Richard.
I just retweeted it, so you know it's going down.
Ah, great. Excellent. Richard, what's your continue the franchise?
All right, so because Machete Kills in Space is so, like, right there already, what I've done is I've pitched a sequel to that. So I'm skipping one film. Hypothetically, we have this. My film, I was trying to think of other like sequely tropes, like real pulpy kind of ones. And then there seems like the obvious place to go after space is time travel. And so I've got a couple of ideas how it can go, but here's the people, because it's another franchise almost like Fast and Furious or the MCU, where it's like, what actors would we like to see in there? So these are the people that I'm adding to the cast. So Freddie Prinze Jr., Amanda Bynes, Jack Nicholson, Gary Busey, and Michael Richards. So all actors that we don't hear from very much anymore, whether that's by choice or by society's choice.
Or choosing to say certain words on stage at certain people.
So
not pointing any fingers.
I don't have much in the way of plot. Well, there's two ideas. The obvious one would be he goes back in time and kills Hitler. But then I thought that one other idea.
Michael Richards plays Hitler.
Oh my god!
Oh Jesus!
That you have. Or the other idea I had was, and then it was kind of ruined by getting to the end of Machete Kills, because there's a shot of Machete fighting another Machete. But I thought, the villain is like a mecha Machete, and it's called Machete Kills Machete.
Very cool. Nice. I have not too dissimilar of an idea for it's like just another sequel wherever you want to put it.
Yeah.
And it's Machete goes to Russia and fights like the Russian equivalent of Machete, and it's called Machete vs. Kalashnikov.
Ooh.
Who plays Kalashnikov?
I looked for famous Russian actors. I couldn't find a single one.
Dolph Lundgren, surely.
Oh, yeah, yes. I was going to jump in.
Of course it's Dolph Lundgren.
He's the most famous non-Russian there is.
Yeah, just Machete versus Ivan Drago.
Yes, fuck yeah, man. Yeah. Machete versus Kalashnikov.
And the tagline for that would be like, you just brought a gun to a machete fight.
Yes.
Or something along those lines.
No, that's perfect. You just brought a gun to a machete fight.
And then in parentheses, but to be fair, the gun does have a knife on it.
He has no bullets. He's just using it as a bayonet.
So thank you very much for coming on the show, Phil, and talking about Machete with us. If people want to find your show, where do they go?
All right, time to get into the zone. Ladies and gentlemen, I am, of course, Phil Better from The Phil Better Show. I am one half of the duo that handles it. The other one is DJ Overflow MTL, the best DJ in Montreal. We can be found at, very simply, searching Phil Better Show on all your social medias. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's Facebook. Just Phil Better Show. It's spelled PHIL, better, not FEEL. Just in case you guys wanted to feel better about yourselves. We have a show that drops every Thursday. And we talk about movies and all that. Our latest episode kind of get derailed because of wrestling. Just gets brought up. We start talking about wrestling. It happens. We go on a lot of tangents. And I have bad focus, so sometimes I just choose to change the topic last minute, and Al has to deal with it. Or DJ Overflow has to deal with it.
Nice. Cool. Well, I'll put links to that down in the show notes below. And as usual, if you want to find Cult Popture, we're on all the social medias as Cult Popture. Or you can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. And to end the show, we are going to announce the Patreon-voted next franchise that we're going to be doing. So over the next fortnight, and sort of like the start of the spooky season, we're going to be covering the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise.
Nope.
Phil's out.
Hell no.
And so that was voted on by our patrons, and we will be doing, I want to say, exclusively scary things for all of October. Ooh. That episode will technically come out end of September.
Yeah.
But the start of the way to fit 3 franchises into a film franchise, Fortnights into a month, is to start at the end of one. Be sure to tune in for that, and thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.